Hello friends and everyone, welcome back to Netcode-Hub channel. Netcode-Hub facilitates a lot of projects and lessons for .NET, Blazor, WebAssembly, and also Blazor Server. And also we have lessons and projects for .NET MARI, and that is for mobile and desktop app development. So when you check the playlist, you're going to find all these playlists over there. This video, we are going to talk about mini projects using Blazor Server and Blazor WebAssembly. So I'm going to put all of the projects here in a separate playlist, and I'm going to name it as Blazor Mini Project. The motive of this video is actually to help those who have basic knowledge in Blazor, either WebAssembly or Blazor Server. But those who have the at least standard knowledge, you can actually grab something from this. Okay, so we're going to have a look today on how to create a simple mini project, and that is a book database. When we talk about book database, it means a place where we can keep track of books. So we must have the database and we must have the book information. So when you check the screen, you can see we have book image, we have book ID, we have book title, we have book description, and also we can perform other actions as well, such as edit or update the data, and also if you want to delete it as well. These are the basic things that we perform or we did under books database. But when you have the basics, you can actually do more. You can add more features to this. We're going to use some components such as Syncfusion third-party components for Blazor, and we're going to use them as you can see from here. The place that you see, or the page that you see here, it is called a data grid. Now with that, you can make a sort out of this. You can make a search over here. So if I want to search for this ID, if I pass in the ID number, let's say 23, and if it is not found, it has no record to display. I can clear that, and I'm going to have the whole list of the data again. If I search for anything like brand, let's see. Because I have nothing to display here because I don't have any title or any book name known as brand. Okay, so let's see if I type in and any other, you can see I have the data over here that has the and inside it. The same thing applies to the description. We also have pagination, and as you can see from here, because you can see we have the book name that we typed display beneath. We can just navigate to the book. So as you can see from here, when you come down, we have pages. Currently, we have 2 pages, and this is the last page. We can also edit it. It tells you the number of items that you have in your database. You can also edit this. You have this icon to edit and also to delete. We added a dialog model, and that is what we're using to perform the editing and also the adding. So if I click on this, let's see, you can see I have this page. Update the book data in the database. So the book that I click, I have the data over here, and now I can just now make changes to this. So I can choose an image, I can change the description, and at the end of the day I can save it as well. Now when you go to the next, you can also refresh this. As you can see from here, you have the button to refresh. You can also drag this, as you can see from here, drag column header to group the columns. You can also group them, drag it, and then put it here. Now it's going to be grouped. So it's going to be grouped by description, and that is it. You can also sort this by description. You can just clear that too from it. Now when it comes to delete, let's try to delete one book here and see. So I'm going to add maybe a dummy data here. So if I click on maybe this one, or let's say this. So as soon as I click, the ID here is 43. The name is evicted. So if I click on this, it asks me, are you sure you want to do this? If I click on OK, now 43 is going to be deleted. So you can see it is off now. Okay, but we still have it here. Maybe we can still refresh this data grid whilst you're doing hours to get this removed. But as soon as I click on this refresh, 43 must be out. So there's no 43 again, and it is getting the data from the database. You can see there's no 43. Also, if I decide to delete this, I can also clear that. And do you want to do that? It is also off. And you can also refresh this here to get it removed. When we are doing this, we're going to implement a place whereby as soon as we delete, it's going to refresh automatically, and I remove that. Yeah, so I just modified the update. That is when you add data and also a refresh button. So let's see. And we're going to have a look on all of these. So let's try to add one data here, and then we're going to delete it as well. So this is test. Then I'm going to choose an image, and that is the image that I'm going to choose. And it's going to pop up over here. As soon as it has been converted to a 64 string, then I'm going to save that, and I have the toast here as successfully saved. Okay, now what is I could see it is now loading to gather the current database brews that we have. And when you check last, I can see we have the data beneath here. Now if I click on delete the 65 ID of 65, now delete this, yes, do that, and now let's wait. You can see that is off, so you can see process successfully completed. All right, so this is what you're going to have a look today. All right, so we're going to start from scratch. I'm going to end at where we've gotten to. We can actually add more features to this, but for now, let's maintain this. As I said earlier on, if you want me to continue this mini project, then give me thumbs up. Okay, so when you do that too, it enables people to also see this video. All right, so we start by creating a Blazor Blazor server project. So let's launch a Visual Studio and let's create the Blazor server project. And now this, I'm going to name it as maybe Demo Blazor Server Book Database. That's going to be the name for this project. And after I'm done with this, I'm going to put it at the GitHub, so you can just go in there and clone it, send the description, and I'll put a link over there. And that's the location where I'm going to keep it in the folder called mini projects. And the framework is on the 7.0. That is what we are going to use. So you can click on create to get it created. So now the project is ready. And one good thing about Blazor server is it is a server. So you can decide to create or map controller to it. You can decide to also create service and utilize the service in your Blazor pages. You're going to map the controller, so we can create our controller and also run this controller in a browser and see the action method that we have created. But we can decide to also skip that. But for this video, as I said earlier on, this is an educative video for those who have the basic knowledge. So I prefer to do everything for you guys to see, not to just skip those things, because they are also important as well. Now let's see. So let's first run this project and see the template as a boilerplate as soon as you create a new Blazor server project. So let's do that. So first of all, let's build this project. Then we now run this project. Yeah, so you can see that from here we have our data, and this is our fetch data. So this is the boilerplate. As soon as you create a new Blazor server project, this is what you see as soon as you run that. Now, when you go to Solution Explorer, that's where you're going to work. Okay, so you can see from here, it's not like the Blazor WebAssembly whereby you're going to have a server and a library and our clients. Here it is one. We have the same server, we have everything in it. So we have to install some packages, and you're going to do the same thing to this. Anything at all that I want to do, we're going to do it to this server, because it is a server, a full server, and you're going to work with it. Okay, so don't worry. Now, the next thing to do here is we want to add controller to it. You can see from the default when you create the project, you don't have controller folder, so we can do that. But when you create controller folder, we have to map the controller in the settings file. That's the program.cs file. So let's first do that before we create a folder for our controller. So let's navigate to program.cs file, and in here we're going to perform that. So the next thing to do here when you're here is we're going to add 2 lines of code, and that is what they are not found here. So let me just give a space here, and these are the lines that you're going to add. We want to add controller with views. Also, you want to specify our HTTP client. Now here we are creating it as a local API because you're going to use an HTTP client factory. So this name is dynamic. You can change it to any name at all that you want. But remember that anytime that you create an instance of this HTTP factory, you're going to get this client, and you're going to have to specify the name that we created here to create the client. And also you can see we have our base URL. So what is our base here? When you run this application, you can see we have 7298. So that is what you have to pass in here, 7298. Okay, you must have this / at the end. So make sure you do these things, and that's what you need. Also, when you come here, you can see we have routing, we have map hub, and also we have this fallback page. So these are the things that it also needs for us to be able to render our controller in the Blazor server app. Now, when you're done with this, you can now save this peacefully and move on to the next one. Oh, sorry, I forgot one thing. Now you can see from here we have to, there is a middleware pipeline, so we have to add that after making a registration. Let's add map controller, and we have to put that in here. So app.mapControllers, and now this is going to enable us to use our controllers. I believe I haven't forgotten any for now. That is it. Let's move on. Now the next thing to do here is first we're going to create our database. So we need to install some packages, and that's what we're going to use. Let's install first of all Entity Framework Core. We have to install Entity Framework Core.tools. Also, we have to install Entity Framework Core.SQL Server, because that's what you want to use. You can decide to use an SQLite, okay? If you decide to use the Lite, it's going to store inside your application or on your server, but we would like to use the SQL database too, because it is here. So let's get going. Let's install these packages. So you know what? I just prepared before recording this video. So I have these packages over there. So I just have to go in there, as you can see from my notes, and I'll just grab them from here. So these are the packages that you need to install: SQL Server, Entity Framework Core. We have design, also tools. Now design and tools, you can decide to install one. If you install the design, we can have access to .NET-EF. But if you install only tools, then you're going to have add migration. Because when you get to migration, when you install the tools, you have to do just add migration. Then you give it name. So this is going to be the name. Then after that, you're going to update database, and now this is going to work. Okay, that is for when you install these tools. But if you install the design, then you're going to have .NET. So .NET-EF migrations. Then add migration, or add, then give it the name here. And after that, you're going to say the same .NET-EF database. Then update, then specify the name here. Okay, so it depends on which one that you want to use. If you want to install design, you can use this. If you want to install tools, you can use this. So anyway, if you install two, the same or the tools too, meaning that you can install, you can use any of these in it. Okay, so let's go in there, and I'm going to grab this. I'm going to install the two here. I'm going to grab this, and I'll save everything that I have here. And I'll close these tabs. I'll go to Solution Explorer. Now here, I'll just right click and I'll unload project. And after unloading, I'm going to paste this here. So if I go to Solution Explorer, I have this. If I click on it, I must have the project settings. And now in here, I'm going to paste this here. So I just paste an item group. Then I'll paste this. So Control KD, and these are the package references that I need to add. Now let's see. So the tag was not closed. Okay, so this tag not closed. You have to close it up here. Yeah. So I think it's fixed now. Now let's save that, and I'm going to close that. And now in here, reload this. Right click, and I go to reload with dependencies. And now once I'm done, what I'm going to do here is right click on dependencies, and I click on manage NuGet packages. Then manage NuGet packages, we click on that. So for you, if you're not having that, you just have to come to the browse and then try to install them. Okay, when you come to browse, you just have to copy them because see I have them installed over here. So you're going to do the same thing, install them as you can see from here. All right, now you are done. I'm going to just build the project again. So right click on this and I rebuild the project and see if everything is working as expected. That's right. So it is ready. Now what you can do here is let's create our database connection string. And we're going to do that in the app-setting.json. So let's specify a database connection string here because we want to first create our database. So I'm going to paste it here. I'm going to specify connection string, and at the name of the database connection, default connection, the database that I'm going to use here, it is bookdb. So I'm going to add demo book database. Now transit connection is set to true, and also trust server certificate, it is also set to true. Okay, so now we are done. Let's go in there and create. Make sure you add this command because it's very necessary. Let's go in there and add our appdb context, and that's what we're going to use to connect our database and also to create or to store where our table or our database table needs its properties from or column names from. So we have to do that. But I think we have to create models first. So I click on project. Let's add a new folder as models. So there's going to be models, and that's where we're going to add all our models. Okay. Now let's right click and create our book model. You know, this is for a book database. So there's going to be a book. Now this book is going to have some properties such as ID, name, description, and image. You want to have these few properties. You can add more, but for sake of our time in this video too, I want to add just 4 properties here, and that's what we're going to use in the whole application. So these are the properties. We want to have an ID. I know ID definitely, defaultly and definitely is going to use as a primary key. We have book title, description, and image. Now you can see from here that I made image as a string. The reason is we're going to convert this image into base default string, and I like that. I like converting image to base default string because when you do that, it is very easy for you to store it in a database and also retrieve it. And I'll use an image tag to render that, to display the content. It's very simple and easy. We're going to have a look at that too. Now let's save that. After doing this, let's close this, and we have to create our appdb context, and that stands for application database connection. That's a context, so that's a connection file. Now let's do that. We're going to do that in a new folder called data, and I learned we have the data folder here already, so we want to do that here. Let's create a class, and now this class is going to be appdb db context. Okay. So put that as an appdb context, and this context class is going to inherit from db context. So this db context is a parent class or it's a base class coming from EF core, and that is the entity framework core, as you can see from the namespace. So make sure you use that and you have it set. Okay. Now the next thing to do here, let's create a constructor for this, and I'll specify a connection string. So control period, hit here, control period. Now you can see we have this last one. Is it last by 3 or 2? Generate constructor with this, and now let's copy the name of this and let's pass it here, and that is it. Let's bring in our table. So down here we paste our table, and the table is from the book, and we set the name to that database table as well, books the table. We set to default because that's the default one that we are using. Let's save that. Okay, so now we're done with this. We have to register this connection in the app settings, not the app settings, rather in the program.cs file. So click here, and now let's do it over here. So down here, before, make sure you do not put it after the app build, because app going to build the ones over here. So it has to build the ones that you are registering to. So make sure you don't put it over here. So we can create a var space here, so you can work here. And now let's paste this. So you can see from here, we are using beta.services.rdb context. You specify the context class. We pass an option as a parameter, and I specify use SQL server. Now this is a package that we installed earlier on, if you could recall. And now we want to grab the default connection, and that is what we specify in the appdb context. Our connection string name as default connection. And also we check if it is deleted, you want to throw an exception like this. With this exception is dynamic, so you can put it any message that you want to do. We want to display anytime the database connection string is deleted. Okay. Now, when you're done with this, we're good to go. So we can now go in there and now start with our migration, and that's a database migration. But before we do that, let's first build and see if it's also working as expected. Go to rebuild. Yeah, so that is it. Now go to package manager console. If you're not seeing yours, don't worry. Go to tools, and now you get package manager. You can see we have the console here. Click on it. And now that is where we are. So it's initializing the PowerShell host, CLS. You can clear screen. And also the next thing that we're going to do here is, as I said earlier on, remember that the one that you installed, you have to use. So if it is this one, then let's copy this, .NET EF migration. But before that, you have to pass in ls. That's when using .NET EF. Now let's copy the name because we have to be inside the application and we are in already. That's the solution. So we're in already. So we just pass in .NET, then EF migrations, add, and I'm giving the name as initials. So I just have to grab this initials because that's what I'm going to be using to update it. Now let's wait. It's going to build it, and let's see. So it's saying that no project was found. Change the current directory or use the project options. Let's do that. So we have this set as startup projects. Open this. And let's see that is set. All right, let's do it again. Okay, now let's do ls and cd. Let's see if we can just get into this. Okay, so that is a cd. Paste that. ls. Yeah, we are in now. So now let's go in there. And I'll do the same thing as we did already. .NET EF migrations, add initials. That is the name. Let's wait. You're going to build it. So build started. You're going to finish it quick. And now create our migration file. That's where we're going to specify the column names we're going to need in the database table. After that, we just have to go to the second one, update .NET EF update database. Then specify the name as initials over there. So you can see build succeeded. And now you can see it is done. So a file is going to be generated here. Now when you go to this, let's specify .NET, paste this, and now we have to pass in initials as our name. Now let's update that. Yeah, so you can see build succeeded, and it is running by the EF core to creating all our tables. As you can read from here, the table name that we specify is the books table. Remember we did that in the AppDB context on top here. That is it. So it is using the property name over here to create the columns in a table for us. It has finished. Okay, so it is now done. When you go to SQL Server Object Explorer, just refresh this, and you're going to have the name over there. The first table or the first DB that I created was, let's see, was the books DB. Now this is demo books DB. If I open this and I go to tables, wait for this to get refreshed, and we have to see our books table as a table over here, and that is it. Now it is set and done. So you have to create a service to render this to our components. Okay, so let's go to Solution Explorer. Now I want to add a new folder, and I named it as services or book services. Now we have to create an interface and implementation class for this. So let's add a new item. And now here we need an interface for this. So we say interface. And we can pass in just interface like that. So we want to say iBook service. Okay. So iBook service. Remember that we're going to choose an interface rather. So iBook service. And now here we make sure that they do not have the same name as the folder name. The folder is the book services. And now the interface is iBook service. Let's create an implementation class for that too. And this class is going to be book service. Make sure you don't do that so we don't have any ambiguous errors when running the application. And this class has inherited from the interface, as you know already. Control period, we can generate interface for this. Or you can just create CTOR for constructor. And now when it comes to this iBook service, we want to have some method over here that is to manage, to delete, and to get the list. Manage is going to comprise of add and also update the table, or for the book info, delete, and also get the whole list. So in here, we have this. Now we are not creating any response model. We want to have as simple as ABCD project. You don't want to create too many models here. So for now, you're going to maintain this. You can see we are specifying our models inside the task. So this is a return type. We want to have a success, that's a bool, and so we want to have this string message. So any message at all, when an error or when it makes success, you want to display that. We do the same thing to this, and we have to get books async. Now the first one going to comprise of add and delete. Okay, so if I want to know, is it add and update? If I want to add data, if I want to add books data, I'm going to use this interface. If I want to update book data, I'm going to use the same interface. If I want to delete it, use this. If I want to get a whole list, I'm going to do this. Okay, we're not doing it for a single one because the data grid that we're going to use here is going to display all the tables, all the fields, all the columns in it. So we do not need to click on view single also again. It is waste of time. Now let's go for the implementation. So with the implementation, we can just go in there and book service here, control period. We can implement all the interfaces, and that's what we have here. Let's start working with the delete async. So we're going to clear this and now paste this. So this that we have here, we want to check if the ID that is the delete, if the ID that is coming in is greater than, if it is less than or equal to 0, we want to return this error message. And we have to set here as async. And also we have to check bool, that is a book to be deleted. We want to call this RBB context, and now we want to first get from the database. And now in case it is null, we want to return error message. In case it is not, then you want to remove from this and also save changes and return success message. Now you can see from here we have this error because we have not injected the appdb context. So appdb context, we can do that by injecting it over here. We create an object out of this control period, or that's a control plus dot. You're going to have this assign field, not for the property, rather going to be the field. We have this assigned, and that error is gone. Now we have to create these two messages. So with this first by default, it's going to come from the EF call control period. We have to include this EF call over here, and that's the entity framework call. We have 3 namespaces, and that's what we have now. Now this error message and success message, you have to create them down here. So let's do that. Let's come here, and now let's do it here. I'm trying much as possible to make this very easy for you to learn, okay, or to just follow. So you can see I have this just string message, one error message, and one success message. So anytime it makes success, display that. Anytime there's error, display that. Okay, you can make a specific over here. Maybe if you want to check username is incorrect, you want to check this and that, you can do that. But for now, you want to just have a static message. There's one, and that is static. So it's going to be created once, and for the whole application once, and that's all. So if it is success, display this. If it is not successful, that's an error message, display that. And that's what we are returning over here. Now let's work with this method. Now this method is very simple, so you can just clear this and now use this lambda expression. So what is a lambda expression? I've made a video on that, using lambda expression, using the null collation operator and also the ternary operator. I'll put the link under this, so you can check that and know how to use them. But for now, that is known as the fat arrow. Fat arrow. And here you can see we want to populate this to the list and I'll return. Let's make this an async. Boom, and that is it. Let's work on this manage, and that's where we have to write our logic for update and delete. So we first have to check if the ID coming in, it is greater than 0, it means we have data already, and let's update that. If the ID is less than 0, it means the new data, you have to add that. So let's clear this and let's have our logic in here. Whoa, so that is it. Now you can see from here we're saying that if book is equal to null, I like using is null. Okay, I like using this. So if it is equal to null, let's make this as an async. Then I want to return an error message. If the ID is equal to 0, you want to check this method, meaning if the ID is equal to 0, it means that we're now going to add a new data coming in. And if it's a new data, then you want to check the title if it is not found already in the database. So I'm going to have a method going to return bool here, and I'm saying that is book already added. So if it is true, we're not going to do that. We're going to add it. But in case it is false, so that's why you use this exclamation mark. You say, hey, turn the results opposite, and that is going to be the negative side. Okay, so false. So if it is false, add it, and I'll save it. Return success message, and that's all. But in case the ID is greater than 0, then what we're going to do, we want to grab the data by ID, and we're going to check if it is null, return error message. But in case it is not, then populate it, and I'll add it to the database, save it, and I'll return success message. Very simple. Let's work on with this method, and that's the only one that left for our service gets rendered. So we can put that down here. Okay, so let's put it down here. And is book already added? We pass in the book name. Now we're going to check from database if we convert the book name to string lowercase and it is found. If it is found, return. If it is not, we see from here we haven't return book is not null. So return book is null means it's going to return true. It's not found means it's going to return false. And that's what you're doing here. So we say we want to maintain the false. So that's why we are turning this upside down to get it false so we can use it. So if the book returns true, it means the book is already added. And in such case, it's going to return an error message. But if book is not, then return the success message. Populate it, and now save it. So that is it that we have here. Now, once you have this beautiful and simple interface and implementation class for our service, we have to register this in the program.cs file. So I'm going to save all this, and I can now close this, and I'll go to the program.cs file and try to register this service over there, and that is it. So let's put it beneath this connection string here. And it's just a simple line that we are adding, builder.services.addScope. So anytime that you create an instance of this interface, we want to add this. You want the class you also follow. So this goes in and this follows it, because this interface here contains only the method names. This service contains the implementation or the definition for this method. So they are like twins, hand in hand. That's why we are joining them together. Let's save this, and we can now close this peacefully as well. And let's see what to do next. After we've added our service for controller peacefully, we can also create a controller for that. And that's what we're going to use to test our application. Although when it comes to the Blazor pages, we're not going to use the controller. We're going to call the data from the controller. We're going to use a service that we have created. But to test it in the browser, let's create controller. So let's go to solution, and now let's create a folder as controllers. So we're going to be controller. So add this folder, and now it's going to be controller. So this controller, let's add a new, and that's going to be book controller. So add new controller here, and I'm going to say API empty one, add book controller, and that is it. We have here. We have to create a constructor, and that is this one. So generate constructor for this, or let's use the other way around. So pass in CTOR, hit an enter key. We have it created. We need to inject our books. So iBook service, and that is it. We create an instance of this control plus dot. We create an assigned field. Remember, we have this here. I want to clear this space. So here we're going to use these services to render or to call for our repo or the interface that we have created. The first method that we want to have access here, it is an HTTP GET. It was already specified for us here. So we want to get books async, and we want to return OK using this fat arrow. So we want to return a call the service of book service.get books async. That is what we are doing here. Okay, now let's go for the next one. So next here, let's save that. You want to call for a post. That is when we try to add book. So manage book. We're going to check if book is null, then return. Okay, so we can put this on the same line. Yes, to make it simple. So return bad request, and that's what we are passing in as false. Okay, so with this false, with this, you can see from this bad request, you can pass in just false here. Now let's get the data from the service, and now if it is success, we want to return OK with the result. If it is not success, we want to return bad request and pass in this model. Let's have a look at the last one. That's going to be the delete. So in the next line, let's specify it is no more get, we're going to be delete. Now here, since we specify in our service that we need an ID, we have to specify the ID here, and definitely ID is an integer, so we specify it as an integer. If you want it as string, specify this as string. Okay, so you can see we have an action result, and our delete book async, you're going to come in with an ID, and that's the same magic that we did here. Take note. Also, we get a service from this book, delete book async, passing the ID. The response here return if it makes access, but if it is not, bad request, put in the response, and off we go. Now let's save this. So we are done with that controller, so we can now go in there and test our controller peacefully and see if it is working. Now let's save this, and now let's run this application and see. So now let's try to see when we navigate to an API, because API and the controller name is book, it means you have to go for the get method. Let's see if we're going to navigate to the controller and I'll get it. So you can see from here, there's nothing here, just one, no data. Okay, a call is being made to our controller and it's working perfectly, but there's no data here. So we have to now go in there, create our component, result component, and try to make a call to this controller or the services and try to add data to the database and get it here before we get it to our Blazor pages. One thing that normally sucks is designing UI. So when you design UI, it takes a lot of time. And I have done that already. So what I'm going to do? I'm going to just copy this and paste the UI here. But don't worry, when you check the GitHub repo, it is there. So you can just clone it and I can just go through. There's a third-party package that's going to help us make this very easy and also beautifully, as you saw in the demo. And that is a Syncfusion component. I had one comment that I should use this Syncfusion, and thanks to the one who gave that comment, and we are implementing the Syncfusion component now. For this subsequent mini projects, I'm going to be using them. Okay, although that time they are not free, we have to get a community license to activate them. But for now, since we are not having this, going to be the demo one, we are not using community license for now. When you go to their website, you can just go in the register, and now when you meet their requirement, they're going to assign a community license for you free. Then you can integrate it in your application. So let's start. Before I do that, let's have to install some Syncfusion component into our application, and that is what we're going to use here. So instead of putting or using the default or the native codes, you want to use the third-party codes because these components are interesting. I have the source code here, and that is the package references. So we have to include Blazor.spinner, that's for Syncfusion, .themes, .popups, navigations, grid, and also buttons. So pause the video, install these, copy them, install them one after the other till you are done. But you know what? I have the package reference already. I'm going to grab this. Then I'll just unload the projects, paste them, and I'll reload again. So I'm going to copy this. I'll make sure I'll save everything. Then close it. Then I'll unload the projects here. Yeah. Let's do it again over here. Let's paste it into our item groups. So here I'll just paste that. Save this. I'll close this, and I'll try to reload this page. I'm going to right click and I'll reload project with dependencies. After that, I go to dependencies and I'll try to build this project. So rebuild this, and it's going to restore the packages that I have linked over here. And that is it. So I am done with mine. So you to pause the video and I'll do yours. When you're done, we can continue. The next thing to do here, we have to add these references to our import.razor file because you don't want to be using them inside the packages or the Razor components. Let's put them at one place, and that is Solution Explorer. Let's go to import.razor, and in here, paste all of this here. So starting from the navigation and add all of this to the, now you can see these are models. And now you can see there is a different name, so I have to just go in there and grab this project name, and I have to just make a paste or make a change instead. Yeah, and I think it is solved now. Okay, so I'll save them and close that. So I'm closing them. So now we are done with this. Let's go in there and create a component that I'm going to use to add book. So I'm going to do that inside the pages. There's the pages over here. Pages. So right click. Now add a new razor component, and the name is going to be add book. So add book dot razor, and now I can specify. Let's see what I did. Add book. Okay, so the name isn't right. Let me edit that. Okay, so add book, and now in here, let me specify the route as page. So add book. That is this one. So let's run this and try to navigate to this page and see if it works. So let's go, and it's gonna be add book because that is the route, and we have to, so we are in here. That's it. So let's start to modify some things here. And I know what I'm gonna just, as I said earlier on, I'm gonna leave this code at a GitHub, so you can just go in there and clone it. Okay, so UI sites, we decide to type in one by one, we're gonna waste time here. So I'm gonna paste them. So 1, 2, 3, boom. Yeah, I have it. All right, let's go through this. So it's very simple. Okay, let's go through them. You're going to understand this very well. And you have the route specified, so I need not to specify another route again. And I'm going to move this on top. From here that we are injecting Navigation Manager, and that's what we're using for navigations. We're injecting the service that we created as the iBook service, and there's the instance that we created. And also we are injecting the state container. So what is state container? When it comes to navigating object from one component to another one, we're going to use state container. State container is in the memory section, and it's going to keep the data that you want to transport from one component to another one. You're going to keep it over there, generate a hash code, and that's going to use the hash code to retrieve the content from the memory. Okay, so that's what the state container is all about. We haven't created a class yet. We're going to create it soon. Now we have a div with the target, and we're using an SF dialog box. Is it dialog box, SF dialog? That's a Syncfusion. Anytime that you see SF, it means Syncfusion company. That's your component. Okay. So we want to have the dialog box, and that's going to be the pop-up. We want to set the visibility to true anytime that the page loads. We want to set it to true. Allow parent, and also make it as modal. And now we are specifying the template. As you can see, dialog template, and we want to loop through when we have any error in it. When you click on this save button and there are errors, you want to save the errors in their list form, and now we want to loop through and now set over here. But you see, we have visibility here, so we want to display if the error in the data or in the list is more than 0. When the count is more than 0, it means you have a list. If so, set this visibility to true, then display the list. And now since the list we are using, it's like a dictionary and a key and a value, okay, key value pair. You're using the same thing for this list, first property and its object. So you have the property name and we have its message. So if it is an email, we're going to say email is not allowed or it's not valid, this and that. All right, so as you can see from here, we have this is a dialog box because we have the content, there's a header, and a header too, we're going to set it dynamically. So if it's an update, you want to set it as update. If you're adding a new data, set as a new data. And also, you can see from here, we're going to add a card header. So we are using card as a bootstrap. We are using card over here. And we are using an SF icon to display as a closing dialog. So the time that you see, we are using that. And this is we're going to use to close it. So this means as soon as we click on this close dialog, it has to close the dialog box. Okay. And we have a modal. So there's an edit form. This is the normal routine that we do when creating the Blazor component. We have our edit form. This is our model. You can see we have data annotations and validation summary, and we have the first one as what? That's a book.title, because we specified the book over here, and that's the book that we specified. So there's an object out of this book model, and we have it. So we can set the various properties here: title, description, and image. We are not using an ID because we don't need any ID for now. So title, description, and image. And now that, as you can see, we have the validation summary for each. So we're going to pop up any error when you try to click on the button or try to go to the next component. or next tag when the first tag isn't served. So all of this, when the button is clicked to submit all this, and that is where you can see we are having a dialog box button. That's a dialog button. We have only just one button over here, and the content here is saved. When it is clicked, call this method. The same thing applies to when the form is clicked, submitted, you want to call this method too, to check for validation, errors, and all these stuffs. Okay, so that is it. Now from here, we are making the toast, and that's what you see when you click on the button. It displays successfully sent or done everything. And this toast, we have to create a Blazor component for that. Okay, so we have this post over here. Now let's do that. So the name of this is make post, and now we're going to set these properties as a parameters: toast content, title, and our display. If the display should set to true, if it's supposed to be hidden or closed, set to false. And that is it. So this is a Boolean expression they're going to use, and this is a title string and also string. So that's what I have specified here. Now this is the content page. That is where we are trying to navigate to a page. So you first have to create a set this into a set has status code, and that is where we are receiving. So we want to have access to this content from the book list. When we click on it, it has to come back to this Blazor because you want to update it. That is when you want to make an update. So we have to create it over here. Let's forget about this. We're going to talk about this later on, but let's see for the toast, because we have a page, toast content, title, and our bool as for display. So we set this as a toast content. So that's what we are doing. Now let's go in there and create this toast so we can understand what this stands for. So we have to go to solution, and in here, let's create a new Blazor component. And the name here is make toast, so we can just paste it here as make toast.Blazor. And now inside this component, we want to paste in this. So you can see we are using an SF toast, and you want to start the reference to this, and you can see we have a title as all this, time at is 500, and you have an icon. Okay, so when you check this Syncfusion component for toast, you're going to see the same thing because I just went in there and I copied it, boom, and I pasted this over here. So you check the documentations, and you're going to have a lot more to that. Now, so when you come to, you can see we are setting this as parameters. It means these are going to be provided by a separate component. That's the Blazor component, and that is the add book component. So we set all this as going to be received. So as soon as they receive, they come in when a parameter set async. We want to set the state as change of this toast. We want to also delay for 500 milliseconds, and we want to display this toast. And that is it. So anything that comes in here for the title, toast, and display, they're going to fit in here and make the toast complete. And that's what we are calling them over here. So we set the same property here to provide the values into these parameters. Okay, now the next thing that we are doing here is we are creating a list of errors. And as you can see from here, we have a list of errors. Now this list of errors coming from an error property, error model. When you come down here, that's an error model. It's having a property and a message. So we set the property and then the message by grabbing through this. So you can see from here that as soon as we set this error, we're going to call this error here. That's a validate model. We pass in the object of this model over here, and now we're going to check this validate model. We pass in this object. So this is also a method. When I want to come down here, this is a method. It is accepting the book. This is the book model error. And now we're going to first clear the error list because you know this is a list. So we clear it first initially. And now we're going to check if the book image is null, if description is null, if title is null, display all this. Now it's like we are setting up a dictionary, key and a value. Okay, so key and then the value. So when you go in there, we're going to loop through this with the property and the message. That's what we are doing it on top here. If you check here, there's a property name, so that's the key and the value. So here is an email, and then the message going to be like email field cannot be null, or etc. Yeah, okay. And that is also, we are going to check if there's no error in it, if all the properties have been assigned values to. Then you want to display error message as visible because it is to use a CSS class. So when you check here, we use a style, visibility. Visible means it should show, hidden means supposed to be hidden. And anytime you have any error, you want to, when the count is greater than 0, you want to set this to visible. Else, we can set this to hidden, and that's what you can set from the default one. Okay, now you have this as visibility for this, and now this representing for this closed dialog. You know, closed dialog, we created a class here, that's a method close dialog box. And now when you come here, there's a close dialog. So we set this to false. Defaultly, it is set to true. That is it. But we set this to false, and I will navigate to the home page. That is when you click on this close dialog, it turns you back to the home page. When the handle save is clicked, then you want to call this service. Note from here, we are calling the service here. We are not calling the API or the controller. We are calling the service straight. And now you want to, after calling the service, we create toast. So this creating toast is a method, and now there's a method here. You know, I'm making this into group. Okay, so you can call the group anytime that you want to use them. And now you can see from this, there's a create. Let's see for this create toast, it is accepting the status and a string message. Now, if the status is true, then display the title as success and then display the content here, because you know that this result is coming in with a bool and also a string, as we did that in the service. So if it is success, you want to set the title as success, but in case the status is false or it has a false, you want to set the title to alert. And now we want to set this message to the current message that we have in there. And that is what we are doing here. We set the display to true. Remember that the display is when we want to display this SF toast display, because as soon as the message comes in, if you watch here, as soon as you create toast, now when it comes to the toast, we are setting this toast content in the title. So after setting this title, then display the toast, and that's what we are doing here. If you really want to display toast, what about the title and the content? They are empty. Okay, you want to display when they have values in it. And now we create a new instance of this book. So it means you're going to clear the old one and I'll create a new instance. So we need not to clear or delete the one that you've written into or we've typed into the text box. You want to clear by using this method, create instance of this book, and that is it. So as for this, I can now clear it because you know it is commented. I don't want to confuse you. So that's what we are doing for this. I think I've gone through all this, and now the last one is the file change. That is when I want to select a file or an image. You know, I'm using an input file and I'm calling this file method. There's an onChange method as onFileChange. I also create an image tag here and I set the source to this image. So this book here source, it means that as soon as I convert this image into base64 string, I want to display it over here. So this image is a string and it's going to set as a source of this image. So I can have a view or a look at this. Okay, so with this method, when you come down here, that is the definition for that. We want to first check the type, the format. Is it PNG, is it JPG, or JPEG? So this method supports all the three types. It is not supporting GIF, and etc. Okay, only these three methods, but I can still override this and do more. Now we check the resize. We create a request the file image size by this 300 by 300 from the width and the height. We also pass in the format, and I will create a buffer size for this, resize and open to restream. And I pass in the buffer, as you can see from this byte that we have been created. Also, we create the size. So now here we are going to convert it from to base64 string. We pass in the buffer size over here, and we pass in the format. So if it is the image/PNG, it's going to come over here. JPG/PNG, image/JPG, or image/JPEG, you know, pass over here. And now you specify the type of the base, that's the base64 conversion type, and I will convert it to base64 string. So anytime that we try to navigate to the page or try to use the page, it knows the type here as the format, and it knows the kind of byte it is going for, base64 string. And I will set this book image. You know, this is a string, so we set it to after the image has been converted into string. We set it over here, and that's what we are doing over here. Very simple. Now, when the page is set or when parameter set, remember that we've set the parameter here. So on top here, we set one parameter, and that's a set hash code. That is when a change is made. Now, change is made from this area on top here. You see we are having a routing. It means it's going to receive something outside from a separate component. And now that's going to be an integer. So we receive the integer over here and we create a variable to hold that. So when the parameter changes, then we want to set this title as update, meaning we're going to update the data. So you want to set this as update. And now you want to receive the state container here. I've already explained what state container is. A memory location whereby you can store object over there, complex object and retrieve it from the next component. Okay, so that is it, and we've created over here. By this state container, we have to create its mother class. So let's do that. We have to add this state container into our models. So in here, right click, and now let's add a class known as state container. So our models, right click, and I click on add a new class. And now here, you're going to say this is state container. So state container is all about dictionary. That is a key and a value. So we create a read-only dictionary here. We pass in the int. It means the key must be integer. And this value must be object. It could be complex object. It could be models. Okay. And that's what we are passing in here. If you want to specify this as only one data type, you can pass in a string. Okay. Or as integer. It means you're going to receive only integers. By this time around, you want to pass in complex object like models. So we want to set it as object. And now we create a new instance of this. So this is the name object tunnel. That is the name that we give it to this dictionary. And we create a new instance of this. Now when you come here, we can now come in and control period. We can inject the interface here. And that is what we are doing here. So you can see we have added the state, injected it over here. And now we can now go ahead and now use that. Okay. So this is a method from this state container object tunnel. Because when it sets here, from this state container, you can see we have this object tunnel over here. Now we are done with this. We have to go to this. There's an add. We have to go to them. We have to write our book list. That is where it needs to get the whole book from the database and display it using the SF data grid. So let's do that. We have to create a new folder, not a new folder, rather a new component, and we are going to set this as book list. So let's set this book list.razor. So let's clear all this and I'll make a paste of what we have already. You can save this. So in here, I'm going to paste this. And now let's go to this. It's also very simple and easy to understand, so don't worry. You see that on top here, we are creating a new instance of, we are injecting an HTTP client factory. Remember that we specified that in the program.cs file. When you check here, we give it a name over here as local API, and that's what we're going to use. So we do that and we inject the navigation manager and also the state container as well. We inject RJS runtime for the interface of this JavaScript runtime, and we also inject our service as well. Now here we are checking if this database book list.count is greater than 0, then you want to display this, because when that happens, it means that this container here has data in it. Now, where from this container, when we trace down here, you can see we have a list. That is a list here of this container, and it's a list of this book. And now we've assigned this to this load data whenever the page loads. Check here, load data. We want to call the API. We create a new instance of this HTTP client, okay, factory. You specify the name that we did in the program.cs file. Also, we read the list from JSON, so read as a list of book. Now we check if the response is greater than 0, you want to assign the results to this book list, and that's the book list here. Then, if not, if the response is 0, meaning we have no data in there, then we have to clear the data that we have in the book list. So we do that. You can see it's very simple, right? So that is a load data method that we call. So when the page loads, call this method. Very simple. So when you come here, that's what we are checking over here and display all this. We are using a Syncfusion grid component, and now you can see this is a data source. So this has to come in with a list, and that's a list that we specified here. Aside from that, we create a reference, and this reference is what we're going to use to refresh it. So when you check here, delete book, you see we are calling this method. We call this method against it as refresh, and to refresh itself, and now get us the current content. Also, there's also one method, and that is what I want to talk about here. That's the visibility property, and also this, we create a reference here. Remember that the reference that we created is out of this SF grid. We pass in the model, and this reference what we specified on top here. We specified the grid columns that we want to use in a database, in a grid to display, and these are the columns. You can see we have an image to display the first one as image. We specify the course here, that is the source rather. And now you can see here we can grab the context as book and can now assign the image. Also from here, name of, you specify the ID, title, and description. Okay. Now the next one here is an actions. So either for delete or for update. But you see from here, you're not seeing any delete or update word here. Just that I added icons. So these are the icons, e-icons, edit, and trash. Trash means delete. Edit means pencil, meaning you're going to edit that. And now when we assign a method, that's an event to it. So this is a call-up event. Anytime you click on this, you want to assign the current context here. You pass in as a model, complex object. Then from this, we're going to receive it down here. Edit book data. That's a model. It's accepting this book model. So that's what it is doing over here. Then we can now transport this book model to the content page for review or to display. Now, for this edit, we are creating navigate to details. Where from this navigate to details, let's check down here. Navigate to details, we are passing in this book, and now we are passing this object, okay? Now you can see from here, we have injected our state container. That is this one is an object out of date. Now when you come here, we create our state container. Then you can see we have a method known as object tunnel. And on this object tunnel, it is a dictionary. So we are adding the key and then the value. The key is the hash code. The value is the book object. This book object, as you can see from here, it is a book model. Then we navigate to this page. Then we pass in this hash code. We are not passing in the object. We are passing only an integer. Okay. So we can get the integer and now retrieve from the status or the state container from the browser's memory. So it's like it gets sent only the ID. When it gets there, now grab the content from the browser using the ID. So it's like we're going to make a query from the browser's memory and now get the content that we set before. Okay, now you know we have this create toast. We've done this already, so we are having the same thing. So you just have to copy this and paste. Normally we could have added maybe one class for this, but I don't want to make this complex too much complicated for you. I want to make this very simple, because I know that this is for beginners or moderate programmers. Yeah, those who want to proceed more in Blazor projects. Okay, now we have all this. You see we have this delete book data, and now this also is a method that is called from here. Delete book data passing the same book context. And now when you come here, we are going to first check, are you sure I want to do this? We can do that by using IJS runtime. And you can see we create a bool object here as a variable. And the response that is going to come here is going to be either yes or no. So if the response is no, return, do nothing. But in case it is yes, then we're going to perform this. So first of all, let me clear this so you don't get yourself confused. You first have to call these services, okay? Then delete book passing the current book ID. The result that is coming in, you can set this, as you can see, string message is equal to this result, or we can just decide to, instead of specify this here, we can just cut this, and now with this, you can just paste it here. So you see you have results.success, you have results.message. So we can now clear this because it's the same. We set display to true. Then we're going to create the toast. Okay, so that is it. We have to first display this and then create toast, or we can create toast and then display. Because when this comes in, as soon as this gets displayed, the toast is going to be created and it's going to pop up. So can you just say like that? And here after that, you want to load the data because here we are deleting. So after deleted, it has to refresh and get the data back, the current ones. And you can refresh this. You know, this method is going to get the current data from database. Okay. But this method has to refresh the form and I get as the current data. Okay. That is all that we've done. Okay. And very simple one as well. All right. So that is it. Now here you can see we are making a toast. We add a toast component here. So we create one component and you can use it anywhere. So if you create a new component, when you call this make toast, you have to specify this content and a title and a display and get it working. Very simple. Okay. And now here we are using SF spinner. So as soon as this page is empty, load, display the spinner. It keeps loading until the content has enough data to make this statement or this condition here false. So you're checking that if the condition is greater than 0, if the content.count That's the data coming from the database. When it counts it and it is greater than 0, it means we have enough data. Display, hide the spinner. But in case it is not, then display the spinner whilst it tries to get the content of that list. Alright, so that's all thing that we've done. I think we made only 2 pages for now, and that's what we see. So now we are done with this. Let's see what's left for us to do again. Let's build this again and see if we have any error in it. We try to rectify before we run this application. Alright, so we have this. Now I just remembered that we have to create our header. Let's do it that fast. So let's create pages. We can put it into the shed or anywhere. So pages, and now let's click on add result component. And at this component, let's set this as header. So this is header. And now in here, we're going to specify what you want to display. Let's say the bar on top of our page. We're going to have add data and also refresh the table. We're going to have that. So here we are using the Syncfusion app bar. You know what? Let me say this. I'm not hired by Syncfusion. I love their component, and that's what I'm using. Okay, so there's no relation to Syncfusion. Just that I'm just a mere programmer and trying to use their component to design, and that's what I'm using to teach you because they are easy. Okay, to implement them. There's other third parties component that you can also use. Maybe you can just suggest which one that you want us to try hands-on, and we'll try to have a video on that too with a project as well. But as I said earlier on, if you want me to continue this mini project for you, please thumb me up. Okay, so give me a thumbs up, and I can just comment over there. Don't forget that. Check the description. There's going to be a GitHub link. You can just click to clone this application. Nice. Okay, let's move on. So we are injecting Navigation Manager, and now we are using an SF app bar, Syncfusion app bar. We set this color to primary, and we have these icons over here. We have my name as Netcode book database, and you can see we have an app bar spacer. So we're going to space this, shift this from left to right. We have 2 buttons on your right, and here we're going to have this method, refresh and add book. When this method is called, you want to call this method over here. That is when this button is clicked, call this method. Okay, so this is a method. We specify this. These are static variables. So we want to create them once and for all. Home and add book. These are the references, the links. So we call this message. And now anytime when you click on this refresh, it comes to this static, and I grab its refresh and I pass it into this model and I navigate to that page. And that's what we are doing over here. Alright, so you can now save this, and let's try to rebuild this project again, and let's run this project, test it and see. Alright, so you can see that it has finished building. Now let's clear all these and let's try application and see. So close this. I'm going to close that as well. Save everything, and then let's run this application and see. Alright, so you can see we have an ambiguous exception. Maybe we specified the name wrongly. Let's check. Index and also our book list. We have to clear one component because we have the same component page or routed as index. Let's see. So we first have to check the book list. You can see we have the page as the home page. Now when we check this index 2, we have the same. Let's clear this. Let's save. Do it again. Alright, so the exceptions aren't solved yet. Our state container 2 needs to be registered. So we have to do that. You can see there's no registered service for this type as state container. So let's get that registered in a program.cs file. So we go to solution, and our program.cs file, we have to register our state container in here. So in here, we can decide we have this interface already. So we can decide to paste this. Now you can see from here, we are registering a state container, and also we are adding Syncfusion core Blazor. That is because that is what we need to do to register the service for Syncfusion. So let's do that before we won't run any, or before we run to any error again. Let's save this and let's see again. Alright, so I believe we are almost there. We still have one more yet to configure, and that is our route. So localhost.7211, by here is 7298. So let's check, and where is that issue happening? We can check our index. So let's say that's our booklist.razor. We specify a static URL and we add the base address as 7211. Let's say from our base book list. Now down here we have a URL, and maybe we made it. Alright, so here 72. What is the route here? Let's check 7298. 7298, because that's the base URL that we are specifying here, and now we can now use this to call our API. Now I believe this is solved. All the problems are solved now. Let's try that and see. Fantastic. So we have the page run at the end, long run. Now you can see from here we are seeing the default one. We want to change this. Okay, we want to change this template, this view. Now we can do that to, let's go to this route, main layout. Now, you know, when you try to add this, I installed, or do you have to even install this? When you go to www folder, CSS, because we have a bootstrap. Maybe if some of your features are not working well, then maybe you can install a new bootstrap, okay, to that. You can just right click on this, then go to add client side library, and you pass in bootstrap. So you type in bootstrap, and now you download it, install it over here. That will be all. Now let's go to this main layout. It can be found in the shared folder, main layout. Now with this layout, you want to replace it with a new one. So I'm going to clear all this. So this is what I want to maintain. Simple one, okay? We have a header component, and that is a component that we created. So we can just call for this using, you can just grab this. We go to our import, and now we paste this booking over there, this header pages. So we now go to our main layout, and this header issue must be solved. So you have the page title, we have our page main, and we are passing our body and our header on top. Okay, let's save this and let's refresh the application. And now let's see, it's going to change our layout. That's the default layout when the page loads. Remember that we've set the book list as our home page. As soon as the page loads, we must see that with the beautiful header on top. So it is now loading, and we are almost there. Alright, so we have this Netcode book database. We have our refresh and add book, but we're not having our app bar. Let's check it up. What we need to do. So we have our header over here, and this is our header. A header can be found in the pages, header.razor, and this is our header. So we are using the SF app bar. Right, oh, I remember. So we have to go in there and now add. Let's see. So it's in the Explorer. Now go to pages. And now with these pages, we have to add the last one. I believe that's the last one. Okay. Trust me, that's the last one. Go to this host.cshtml. We have to add this Syncfusion, CSS, and also the JavaScript libraries links over here. So let's install that. Let's put it here. This is coming from the Themes package that we installed, Themes, okay? And now from here, we are using the Bootstrap 5 dark. So we are using the dark. You can decide to take off this dark. I'm going to have the light version. So let's say if I take this, I'm going to have the light version. Now let's add the JavaScript too. So put this down here. Save that. And now we are good to go. So let's refresh this. Now we're going for a theme of light. We can maintain the dark when we are done with this, but here we're going to have a light version, and the dark one is when you have the dash dark, remember. Let's run this again. So at the long run, you have this over here. Now this, what you see here, is normal because we have no validation license, and you can just do that for here, okay? But you know, I have one license, so I have my personal one, so I'm going to paste it so I can just get this cleared off, okay? But if you want to do that, click on claim your free account, and I'll go in there and I'll claim your free account as well. So I have added the license, and that is why you can see that warning is off. Check the description. I have a video on how to claim free license, okay? If you love to use Syncfusion components in your designs or in your application, check the video, go through it, and it tells you, we're going to show you step by step of doing that. All right, so you can see we have this loading icon here because our data grade or our grade here, it is now. Remember that we are using the light version, so that's why you can see this. Now, if I click on add book, let's see. So add book, I have to navigate to a place where I can add a book. That's the add book component. All right, so let's try to see that data first. So let's go to our database and add maybe a single data or record. So Server Explorer, I'm gonna go to the book tables and right click and go to view data. And now in here, we want to add just one record. So the title is gonna be book title, and book description. Then I'm gonna have book image. Oh, so this is supposed to be the next one. We can just cut this and now tap and now let's paste it here, book image. Yes. Yeah, so we have this. Let's save that. Let's come to our page and now let's try to refresh this and now get the data from the database. Yeah, that is it. Now we have it. We have the book ID of 2. We have book image of 2 here. And now if I click on refresh, you can see I'm getting a new refresh here. You can see that the view here it is white because we are using a light view. I've shown you where to use a dark or where to get a dark. You can now drag this and now you can just group the columns so that's what you want. Okay, so we can add more. Let's add one more. So here the title, and let's choose an image here. And I'm going to choose this inheritance by Reynolds, and the description here, I have it over here. So I'm going to just grab, all right, so let's choose this. So I'm going to use this one, and let me paste the title here. Also, let me grab, I have the image over here. So the description, let's see if I have some text for description. Maybe this will be okay. So I'm going to grab this, and now let's paste it here. Now let's choose the image. So I'm going to choose from books, and now that is this one. So I can choose this image. And now this image has to be converted to a 64 string and now show the output here. At least you're going to see something. You can decide to increase the height of this to format it the way that you want it, okay? That's for UI design. I leave it up to you. Click on save, and I can see it is saved. So process successfully completed. If I click on close, that's refresh, and I can see I have the image over here. I have these buttons as well. I can just click on refresh to refresh the database, and that give me the current one. I can just delete the first one. So if I click on, I just want to do this. Yes, of course, it is off. Completed. Now if I click on this, it navigates me to the page, and that's because I have the same content here. I can decide to update it. So let's say update it. Let's add description, update it. Maybe you can change the image here. Let's choose another book image. I am Mahala, so let's choose this. And that's going to be the image for this lady. Let's click on save. And now let's wait. So this image here has a problem. All right, so we can just close that. Let's see. So we can also handle description. We can handle exceptions over here too. So let's see if, let's say visited, and we're going to use a different image now. Try to save this, and you can see it is now completed. So all the code that we do, you can see the image is now saved. Now all our code, we did not handle any error. So we can handle errors by using try and catch block. I'll leave that one to you. So when you go to all our source code here, our services and the code under each of the components, you can see there is no try catch error. So when there's error, it's going to pop out, it's going to block the whole content. We don't do that. So make sure you cover it with the try catch block. All right, so I believe now we've able to achieve what we want to get. We've seen how to create a database, that is a book database, whereby user enters the book, and also we store the book info and also add the image as well. That is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. But if you want me to continue this mini project, then please check downstairs, give me a thumbs up. If you have any issue too, put at the comment section over there and we're going to attend to you. Also, check our playlist. We have a lot of lessons for you over there. And you're going to enjoy watching these lessons and videos. Thank you so much for watching. Maybe if you can decide, or you can just tell us the next project that we should do, and we consider that as well. Thank you. Take care of yourself.